Now, before I introduce our next session speaker, I'd like to take just a quick moment to thank our partner ShareThrough for their support of NexTech this week, and in particular for their collaboration and help in pulling together this next session for us. We're so grateful for that support, and we're especially grateful to them for making this next speaker available. So please welcome ShareThrough Chief Product Officer Curt Larson to the virtual stage. Curt has a terrific presentation prepared for us. I'm going to rejoin Curt for his key takeaways and to take some questions from the audience. So send them in via chat and get to as many of them as we can. So Curt, welcome to NexTech, and the stage is yours.
All right, thanks, Matt, and thanks everyone for joining. Again, I'm Curt with ShareThrough. Let me just get my screen share started here. So what I really want to talk to you today is about an opportunity, a big opportunity as marketers to get better performance. And I think to get better performance without increasing costs by just taking a different, sort of more human-centric approach to advertising. I have some cool stats to share, some product announcements, some amazing performance results. So we'll get to that. I want to start with a story from my own weekend, which I think illustrates a lot of what we're going to talk about here. I'm a big Olympics fan. I especially love the opening ceremonies, and I couldn't watch it on Friday night. So on Saturday, I wanted to watch it. I was trying to figure out how, it's always complicated, right? But I decided I can log into NBCOlympics.com on my phone, authenticate through my cable provider, play it, cast it to my TV. It was great. About 10 minutes in, I realized, wait a minute, this isn't going to work. My phone is now occupied playing the opening ceremonies. I can't not have my phone for the next 3 hours, So I went and got my iPad, repeated the whole procedure, got it going again, and weirdly enough, you couldn't fast forward, so I had to rewatch the first 10 minutes again. But it was totally worth it. I could have my phone now for the rest of the session. It just seemed so inconceivable to me that I would have to, sit here and watch this show for 3 hours without my phone. And I'm sure that rings true for a lot of you, and we certainly have survey results that back that up. And that's one example of how the way people consume content has changed. There are many others, and I think we all know that this has changed over the past years, particularly in sort of the smartphone and OTT era. For one thing, we're navigating through feeds, not pages. And what feeds really mean is it's more of a passive consumption experience, right? We're expecting that the content is brought to us, and we're scanning it very quickly, looking for what we're interested in, right? And that scanning behavior happens incredibly quickly. We've done actually a bunch of research over the years at ShareThrough around how people process images versus text. And in particular for images, people can process those incredibly quickly. So you're paying milliseconds of attention to each of these pieces as you scan through and look for behavior. Similarly, things have changed on TV. People have talked for a while about the mobile being the second screen to TV. I think it's almost the other way around now. I think it's almost the TV is the second screen to mobile. And we have some really interesting stats that are going to back that up here in a little bit. Everything can be skipped, blocked, or muted. And as marketers, maybe there's not a lot we can do about blocking, but there's definitely things we can do about skipping and muting to make sure that our message is still getting through to the consumer, even if it's skipped or muted. And we're going to talk more about muting in particular today. Of course, media has also evolved as well to where the vast majority of digital media is bought programmatically. And of course, programmatic buying means we're focused on data and real time and optimization and targeting and all of the fun dashboards and metrics that we can look at. But I think that we've lost touch with the real purpose of advertising sometimes, with what is it we're actually trying to accomplish when we run an ad, which is sharing content with humans. I kind of ran this experiment over the years where if I'm talking to a trader, I ask them, how often do you look at the creative you're trafficking? And the most common answer is only if there's a problem. The second most common answer is, well, I look at it at first to make sure it loads, but I'm not really like looking at the creative, right? And so we have this divorced the idea of how we're reaching consumers with content and then the actual delivery of that content. And that creates a huge opportunity, particularly because of some of the ways that consumer behavior have changed. At ShareThrough, we've been conducting research on this for years. We've always believed kind of the purpose of our exchange is to create comprehension among humans, right? And we started that by saying, well, we need to understand how human minds actually comprehend advertising. And I was kind of alluding to this earlier. Years ago, actually, we hooked up electrodes to people's brains and measured how they consume different types of ads. And the biggest takeaway was what I alluded to earlier. Images are processed in a very different way than text. Human minds haven't had a lot of time to get used to reading text in the grand scheme of our history. And we read text very slowly, and we actually retain it much more than images. This old saying that an image is worth 1,000 words is kind of not true in terms of creating actual comprehension with people. If you're interested more in this topic, you can Google share through neuroscience, and you'll find a bunch of research on this. But we've done that research and other research, and over the years really built an exchange focused on this idea of comprehension. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about the rest of the time here, is how do you get humans to comprehend your ad? Because comprehension is part of the journey you're trying to take people on. If you think about the goal you have as a marketer, it's to create a behavior change, right? It's to change someone's mind in a way that changes their behavior. But that's a tall order, right? And there's a journey to get there as a marketer. It starts with exposure, and I think we're all pretty used to talking about exposure. These are sort of reach and frequency and on-target metrics that we've talked about as an industry for many years, and we kind of understand how to measure. Maybe cookie lists, like we just chatted about in the prior panel, is going to make some of this harder, but we basically understand all of that. As we move past exposure towards behavior change, the next step is getting attention, getting the consumer to actually pay attention to your ad. I think we've made a lot of progress on this in the past sort of 5 years as an industry in moving towards viewable impressions, right? And measuring viewability and optimizing towards viewability. And of course, a viewable ad doesn't guarantee that a human paid attention to it, but a non-viewable ad guarantees they didn't. And it's getting us closer to attention. So that's really a step in the right direction. But there's still this huge gap between attention and behavior change. And a big part of that gap is this word I've already said, comprehension, right? Getting people to actually understand your message is a big part of moving towards this ultimate goal of behavior change. So we're going to talk more about comprehension today, and specifically about video comprehension. We could focus on lots of things, and I'm happy to chat with anyone about other types of comprehension another time, but we'll focus on video comprehension today. And before we dig into creating video comprehension, we need to think about what are the different contexts in which people are viewing video advertising content. And Jounce Media, which is an industry consulting firm, I think Chris from there is actually speaking today. They do a great job with lots of industry analysis. And something they put together recently is this 5-part framework for classifying video contexts. So the context in which your ad is being seen, watching, reading, playing, listening, and traveling. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the first 3 here, and then we're going to choose to zoom in on reading. So the first context of video being watching, right? And this means the consumer went to the page or app or CTV app with the main intent of watching video. That was what they expected to get when they landed on the page, and they're looking for video to play when they land on the page or the app. It's typically a large screen or potentially a full screen video experience. And as marketers, we're given the opportunity to insert an ad in front of or during that organic video. And we typically would think of this as a sound on environment, though we're going to see in a minute, maybe we should re-examine that, thinking about whether the sound is on in this environment. The next environment is reading. In a reading context, meaning the consumer came to the app with the intention of, or the page with the intention of reading content, news, recipes, weather. Their goal is to read or consume text or maybe some image content. And there's a video ad also playing on the page. And often we would call this an outstream ad, almost always a sound off environment, right? The last video environment we'll touch on a little bit here is the playing environment, right? An online game. And typically you'd have video ads between levels, or perhaps as a rewarded video to get something in the game. And you have this opportunity to present an interstitial video ad. You could immediately see here one of the opportunities in gaming is to think about the fact that a great majority of that inventory is vertical. So maybe you could take better advantage of the vertical video. So these 3 environments we just talked about compose the vast majority of online video inventory, with reading being the largest. 42% of the video context available to us as marketers are reading, 38% watching, 14% playing. And I think reading being both the largest and perhaps the least optimized for is where we're going to focus our efforts today. So we're going to start with a test first, actually. So you got to pay attention. There's going to be a poll here. We want you to answer a question. So we're showing you this video ad. So I'll let it loop a couple times. If you can watch this ad and try to figure out what is the main message of this video. And Christy, if you can pull up that poll for folks, I'll let this loop one more time and see if you can understand what it is this video is communicating. All right, so while it finishes its, I guess, third loop, I think that you've gotten a chance to see, go ahead and answer the poll, please, for what you think this video is communicating. And we will come back to the results of this poll in a few slides, and we'll see how you did, okay? So now I want to dig into a little bit of the actual results that were really the genesis of this presentation in terms of a recent research study we did around consumer behavior for online video. And really the summary of that is muting is the normal. And muting is the normal at a surprising level and surprisingly across devices. 75% of people keep their phone on mute, even when they're watching video. 62% keeping their computer on mute, even when they're watching video. So the vast majority, and as we would expect, the age brackets sort of skew towards a little bit younger ages, but everyone is keeping their stuff on mute. And not surprisingly, if your devices are on mute, people expect videos to have captions. 70+% of people on phone, 60% on computer, nearly 60% on TV are saying they would be more likely to watch a video if it has captions, right? And of course, this makes sense. If the audio is off without captions, the video doesn't have a lot of value. I think the most surprising part of the survey was actually this statistic, which is that most people are watching TV with captions on. I don't personally do this, so I was a little bit taken aback by this, and I kind of started talking to a lot of folks in my life about this behavior. And I think I've come to learn, like, people are viewing even full screen TV as a little bit more of a passive background experience that they can opt in and out of. If you've got the TV on mute or on very low volume with the captions on, it allows you to kind of opt in and out of the TV as you have time, as you're entering and exiting the room or doing other things. And also if there are multiple people in your household, right? It's easy for people to opt in and out of the TV. So people are turning captions on the TV as well, even when they could hear the sound if they turn the volume up. Of course, captions have been the norm on social ads for a long time, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook. People are used to captions on social. They've been around for several years. So we really said, well, why not think about doing captions on the open web with what's traditionally called outstream ads on the open web? And indeed, that's what we did. We'll see that here in a second. So let's come back to the survey. So let's see how you did in terms of answering the question. The number one answer was watch 12 Degrees of Kevin Bacon exclusively on Visible. Number two was win an all expenses paid trip to meet Kevin Bacon. Those are actually the two wrong answers. The other two least vote getting answers are the correct answer. I guess I just gave away the answer to my next slide, but now try watching the same video with captions on and see if you can understand the intent of this video now. Right, it's pretty obvious if you read the captions here. It actually gets right to the point. All right, but it's a great example of how little value this video had without captions and how much more value it has with captions in terms of conveying the message to the end consumer. So understanding this, ShareThrough decided, let's test building this feature. Let's test building captions for outstream video. Interestingly, we really fast forwarded our development here based on the election cycle last year. We spun up this political ad review committee with me and several folks across the company, and we looked at all of the political ads running on our exchange to make sure they weren't violating our rules. And we realized in doing so, not only were a lot of the ads really just terrible quality, but most of them were ununderstandable without captions, and these were mostly outstream ads. And it just really struck us what an opportunity this was. So we went and built this feature, and it turns out it works amazingly well. Captions deliver much better comprehension, 56% increase in comprehension when you add captions to a video ad. And in fact, the video ad with captions is then getting as much comprehension as the organic content that the user was on in the first place, which is sort of like unimaginable as a marketer, right? If you've gotten the same level of understanding as the organic content, you've really done your job. So incredible results from adding captions to videos in terms of comprehensions. ShareThrough's now launched this across our exchange. You can run it on any DSP, target any standard VPAID or VAST tag at the exchange, and we can add captions. Not only does it, of course, make it more accessible for deaf and hearing impaired, but it really increases the comprehension and helps you move up this, comprehension ladder on the way to behavior change we've talked about. It's a huge tool, particularly for Outstream, in moving up that ladder. So just summarizing some key takeaways, and then hopefully we'll have a minute for questions. Test your ads in live environments to see if people comprehend them. You can't measure comprehension on every impression, but you can certainly run comprehension studies and understand if people are comprehending your ad. Or perhaps before that, just think of a human-centric approach. Just think of the way users are viewing your ads. Remember some of these stats I showed you about things being on mute. Think about how to design your ads for humans. And of course, add captions to your video ads. I think not just for Outstream, but for all types of video ads, add captions. The easiest way to do that, in my opinion, is to target the ShareThrough exchange, and we'll add them for you. But wherever you're running your ads, I think captions are an amazing way for you to increase comprehension. So that's it for my content. If we have time for questions, happy to take any questions from the audience.
Hey, Curt, great job. You packed so much good information into that 15 minutes. We could do another 15. I wish we had the time. I'll just ask you a quick one. So clearly, I mean, the adoption of captions with TV and across the web is, it's not going to go away. My wife and I use them now all the time because we've got little kids sleeping. But talk about whether there's an additional cost to enable dynamic captions.
Yeah, and you just filled in one of the other use cases I hadn't realized for turning captions on, right? Not waking people up in the household. Yeah, with ShareThrough, there's no additional cost. It's built in part of our exchange. We think it's just worth it for us to pay for that and increase the performance on our exchange.
Awesome. Well, listen, I'm so sorry that we're out of time, but again, great job. You're welcome back anytime. We greatly appreciate your insights and, of course, ShareThrough's support as a partner here at NexTech this week. So thank you, Curt.
All right. Thank you.